In this video, I'm going to talk about what's the difference between an employee and an independent contractor. Where this comes into play, an employer may wish to pay somebody as an independent contractor and avoid payroll tax liability, unemployment, etc. And an employee may be more likely to take that, being that they think they're getting paid more, as a 1099 gig typically pays more, but there are a host of tax issues, etc., that an employee should be aware of. So when it comes to is somebody an employee or an independent contractor, the IRS was kind enough to give us three categories: behavioral, financial, and a relationship between the employer and employee, so that we can make our determination on whether or not we're dealing with an employee or an independent contractor. So for behavioral types, uh, we want to look at the method of instruction. Does the employer provide education and instruction to the employee? If so, it's likely that you're dealing with an employee versus a contractor. Um, Personally rendered means, can the employee sub out their work? So if you have an employee in a factory and they're able to hire somebody else to do their job, it's likely that they are a contractor. The hiring and firing process. If the employee is able to hire and fire their own employees to get the work done, then they are likely a contractor. If they aren't able to do so and they have no authority, then they are likely your employee. Continuing relationship. If after the job they stay on payroll, or that you keep giving them 1099s and they just keep going with you job to job, they are likely your employee. If it's a one job thing and you don't see them again, it was likely a contractor. Work hours. If you set their work hours and say from 7 till 5, you've got to be on site every day, they're probably your employee. If you tell them where they have to come do their work every day, then they're probably an employee. The sequence, if you tell them the steps and how to get the work done, they're probably an employee. And then another one that we'll look at here is delivery of reports. All right, so typically an employee will deliver reports to management on what work is being done, whereas a contractor will deliver results. So there's another distinction. On the financial side of things, we may want to look at the timing of payments. All right, so a typical employee is getting paid every week, every 2 weeks, maybe every month. A contractor is typically paid when the work is complete. So if you're only getting one paycheck, it's one large sum of money at the end of a job, you likely are a contractor. But if your boss is giving you if your boss is giving you money in the form of a check every week, and then at the end of the year they want to give you a 1099, it's likely that you are actually an employee and they are just fraudulently considering you an independent contractor. If you control your travel and business expenses, you're probably a contractor. If you provide your own tools and materials, you're likely a contractor. Typically, employees are given tools and materials to do the work. The investment. So, if you've bought a truck and a trailer and you bought tools and equipment and you've hired people, you are probably a contractor. But if you have made very little investment in the business itself, and you just come in every day, clock in, do your job, and go home, you are probably an employee. And then as far as liability for losses, all right, so an employee is obviously going to be paid regardless if the business makes money or doesn't. Eventually, a business that loses money will no longer make payroll, but you will continue to get your paycheck until that point. A contractor, however, may not. They may not make any money. They may be liable for any losses. Let's say that their quote ran over and they needed more material than they accounted for, and they had to eat that loss. Typically, employees they're not liable for that loss, whereas contractors, the risk is on them to make a profit, not the employer. And let's also look at relationships here. All right, so if it's integrated, if the employee and employer are just one and the same and they're doing work together all the time, you're probably looking at an employee. Is the employee able to go do multiple jobs at one time? So that's another distinction. Can your employee leave and go work for other customers for portions of the day and come back and finish their job? If they can, they're probably an independent contractor. But if not, the IRS would say that they're likely an employee. Same goes for availability of services. Are they allowed to provide services to others or only one company? And are you able to fire them? And are they able to quit? This is just a quick list of 20 factors that one should look at in determining if you are an employee or an independent contractor. And again, where this is important is an employer. Let me make this red. An employer must pay their share of payroll taxes unemployment, etc., to their employees. And remember, the onus is on the law, not the choice. You don't have a choice to determine if somebody is an employee or an independent contractor.